to start?
Do we need a pen?
Can we start with the salawat, please? Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I will answer the queries that you've written down for me or sent to me by text later on. But to start off with, I'll just go over a preview of what we did last week, just very, very quickly. So in front of you, you have a map. It's a Qur'an City map. You should have it with you. And the idea of the map, as I mentioned last time, was to be able to look at an overview of the Qur'an. We found most people, when they looked at the Qur'an, either knew the 4 quls, or maybe if they were really, really good, the last juz, they may know Surah Yasin, Surah Al-Mulk. If you were coming for Eid Salah, you would know Shams and Na'ala. Maybe Rahman if somebody got married in the family, but that was about it. So the overview just helped it a little bit, and that's why we created Qur'an City. It all started with a Lego Lego model of the city. You can see some of the teachers and students building it there. This is what you have with you, which is the final version of Qur'an City. Qur'an City is 114 buildings. It will never become bigger. It will never become smaller. We use the morphology of Medina to build Qur'an City. And Qur'an City, when I said 114 buildings, it's got 86 Makki and 28 Madani. Makki you know because they're yellow, Madani you know are they're green. I'll go very quickly over last time's talk. The Makki ones tell you the why of religion, the Madani tell you the how of religion. Now we wanted to then put them into a city, so we created a city center which revolved around the Qur'an, and there's 19 suburbs that go around it. We've given you a blank one at the back, so hopefully you will learn where they each go. These are the difference between the Makki and Madani, and I went over that last time. There is a chronological order. The order we have in the Qur'an is not chronological. It is the order that the Prophet placed the Qur'an in. And each of the surahs dovetails onto each other. But this is chronology. So you see the Madani ones first and then the Makki. So the first surah to be revealed was, you can see, surah number 96, which is Iqra bismi rabbikal ladhi khalaq, or the first 5 ayat. Now what we did with the children was, we gave each surah a postcode. So for example, we told them, today we're doing Surah Al-Furqan. Now, if you can find Surah Al-Furqan somewhere here, you know it's Makki. Is it Makki or Madani? Have a look at your surahs and you can see it's yellow, so it's Makki. So if you can find Surah Al-Furqan, so the postcode would be 362535. Can you see that? So the surah revealed before Furqan was 36, and the revealed after was 35. So if we asked a child, what is the postcode for Surah Al-Furqan, they would tell us 362535, which means you immediately know Yasin was revealed before Furqan, and then Surah number 35, which hopefully you know what it is, Fatir, was revealed after it. So that's how we work out with the children, and that's how they know the chronological order. Again, before you enter the Qur'an City, or rather before you start reciting Qur'an, wudu, better to be able to recite in Arabic. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا إله إلا الله, which many people avoid, and the Prophet's dua, which was والزم قلبي حفظ كتابك كما علمتني. Basically that means I want to fall in love with the book. The network we've called M14. Basically the Masumin 14. You cannot understand any of these surahs, or we call them buildings as far as we're concerned, without being able to refer to the ahadith of the Masumin. I explained all this last week and last time, so I'm not going to go over it because you can watch the video. But what we're going to go today is look at how we now look at each surah and work through it. So we're going to look at, so I'm just going to go ahead and look at Surah Al-Furqan. So if you look at your maps, this is the city center. City center, all the surahs that directly relate to the Qur'an. So you have 25, 96, 97, and 98. And you should know them like that. 25 is what we're doing today, and you'll see how we work through it. It's Surah Al-Furqan. And Surah Al-Furqan tells you who you become if you follow the Qur'an and who you become if you don't follow the Quran. It's very simple. So with every single surah, and if you look at your books that you have in front of you, you will turn to Surah Al-Furqan, which is surah number 25, like that. And you know, the first thing you will notice is that 77 ayat, it's a Makki surah. I also suggest that you bring your Qur'ans next time, if there is a next time, and you're able to put the building in there. You can download it from the website, and then you actually annotate, you journal your Qur'an, and that's how it works, okay? So we're looking at Surah Al-Furqan. City Centre, Surah Al-Furqan, who you become. You've got Surah Al-Alaq, which is 96. How the Quran was revealed, and you know how it was revealed. The Prophet sitting and meditating in the cave and in Jabal al-Nur, and Jibreel says, Iqra, recite. First word that changed humanity. 97 tells you when the Quran was revealed, and 98 tells you what the Quran is. So I'll start again. 25, who, 96, how, 97, when, and 98, how. Okay, today we're only going to look at Furqan. I don't want to push you. Last time we looked at Surah Al-Fatiha and Baqarah very, very briefly. Now, the first thing to look at any surah is to know what is the focus of that surah. First of all, maybe the meaning, Furqan. The Quran is known as Furqan. Furqan literally means to separate, to tell the difference. You know, even in Gujarati, we say, Ama farakche. We say that, don't we? Firqa, separation. Right? So it actually separates good from bad. So here, Furqan will separate what your thoughts and beliefs are if you do not follow divine guidance. And then it gives you a tick list. Are you these things? If you follow divine guidance, this is what you should become. We're not going to go into every single ayah, but we will look at them. So that's the first thing you're going to look at. So again, I repeat, in a nutshell, if you're thinking, what is Furqan talking about? You know it's talking about separation of who you become if you follow the Quran and who you become if you don't. 5 sections, okay? Very simple. When you look at this, when you look at the surah, you will see 5 sections, okay? You can see the focus. It talks about the inability of the Makkans to accept the Prophet because of his being human, and you'll see why, and characteristics of those who are believers. So in other words, good and bad. Furqan distinguishes right from wrong. Oh, there's some nice benefits. You know, very often people worry about their possessions and their homes. And you find people have you seen people when they have their suitcases, they write Kitmir? Have you seen them? That's the name of the dog in Surah Al-Kahf. Yeah, okay, you looked after them, and you can write that too. But if you printed Surah Al-Furqan and put it in your suitcases, you won't escape customs, huh? You have to pay your duties. But you will make sure that your possessions are kept safely. So you keep it at home, it's a good idea to do it. Okay, I'm not going to go into the narrative. So section 1, I said those 5 sections. It tells you about those who don't follow divine guidance. And we'll see the objections when we look at each of the ayah. Section 2 talks about the Day of Judgment, and I'll just pick one ayah of it, the complaint of the Prophet. 3rd gives you an example of those who didn't follow, because it always gives you historical examples. Then it says, you know what, you need to reflect on nature and see who really is Allah. And finally, what we're going to look at more in detail is section 5, which is a tick list. Do I follow all these things? Are you good with that? Okay, section 1. So I'm not going to go into the first ayah, neither am I going to go into the second ayah, because you can go into it. But I'm going to go into the 4th ayah. So let's look at what he says. وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Kafaru mean those who covered up. And those who cover up the truth, they say, in هذا, this is indeed, ifkun iftarahu. Ifk is a lie. So now they're talking literally about what the Prophet is talking about. Because he's changing a whole community. Their whole focus in life is different. They had a class system. In their systems, if you did not fit in, you were thrown out. In their system, if you were not good enough to be a Meccan, sorry, you couldn't live in Mecca. You had to be thrown out. You had to be perfect to be able to live there. Okay? I'm not going to go into what we do, but I'm just going to go here. So they say, if, this is a lie. Because the Prophet said, as the Qur'an says, that إِنَّا خَلَقْنَاكُم مِّن ذَكَرٍ وَأُنثَى. We have created you from one man and one woman. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلَ لِتَعَارَفُوا. The only reason you are of different colors and different races is that you are able to appreciate some sort of differences. But that's all it is. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. The most honored with Allah is the one who is God conscious. And they couldn't quite handle that. So they said it's a lie. Then they said niftarahu. He has copy-pasted it. So it's a lie, which is found somewhere, makes sense, so he's copy-pasted it. أَعَانُوا عَلَيْهِ قَوْمٌ آخَرُونَ. And he can't have done this alone. He's not a lone wolf. There is a terrorist cell somewhere that he's with, and they're all getting together to change the way we live. You heard that before? They're changing things. You know, you say, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Isti'ana means asking for help in something you're already doing. So they're using the same word. They're using it in a different way. They said he's being helped. فَقَدْ جَاءُوا ظُلْمًا وَزُورًا. And Allah is saying that they are doing injustice. Now, wazura comes from the Arabic word ziyara. Ziyara actually means turning away. When you say I'm going for ziyara, it means I'm turning away from everybody except the one whom I'm visiting. So Allah is using the negative connotation. He's saying they're turning away from the truth, making all these excuses. So first excuse they said, he's a liar. Secondly, they said he's copy-pasted. Third, he's not a lone wolf. He's part of a terrorist cell, okay? وَقَالُوا. Now the other example they give, or the other thing they say أَسَاطِيرُ الْأَوَّلِينَ. These are ancient stories. What difference does it make if somebody died 1400 years ago? What are you doing about it? They say, what are these stories of prophets? What relevance do they have today? So they're saying about the Qur'an, Asatirul Awwalun. Iktatabaha. He is writing them. Fahiya tumla. There's been dictated to him. Alayhi bukratan wa asila. Morning and evening. Now, although they were dissing him, they were actually telling the truth. Because it's been dictated by Jibreel. And he is writing it down. And they said he was ummi. That means he couldn't read or he couldn't write or didn't know anything. So how did he do that? They were contradicting what they were saying. Okay? Just so you know how the Qur'an works. It's beautiful. قُلْ, say. أَنزَلَهُ الَّذِي يَعْلَمُ السِّرَّ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. What has been sent down to him is by the one who knows the secrets of the heavens of the earth. إِنَّهُ كَانَ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Even then, Allah doesn't say, I'm going to get so mad at you. He says, I'm غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. Let's see their other objection. وَقَالُوا, they say, مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ. How can he be a representative of God? يَأْكُلُ الطَّعَامِ. He eats food. He sits down and eats with us. وَيَمْشِي فِي الْأَسْوَاقِ. He goes shopping. If he was a divine messenger, in their heads, he would not eat, he would not go shopping. لَوْلَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِ مَلَكٌ. And there is no bodyguard with him, no angel following him. فَيَكُونُ نَذِيرًا. How can he tell us about something when he's just an ordinary human being? There's no difference. أَوْ يُلْقَى إِلَيْهِ كَنْزٌ. And there's no treasures. If you came from God, you'd have lots of treasures with you. He doesn't have treasures? What's wrong? أَوْ تَكُونُ لَهُ جَنَّةٌ. He doesn't even have a garden. He doesn't own anything. يَأْكُلُ مِنْهَا. That he can eat from it. He's just a poor orphan who's got nothing. To them, the only person who could become a leader was somebody who had money, who had power, who'd been to Oxford and Cambridge. Sorry, not them. Just trying to make it stick in your head, okay? So, يَأْكُلُ مِنْهَا وَقَالَ الظَّالِمُونَ. And those who are unjust say, إِن تَتَّبِعُونَ إِلَّا رَجُلًا مَسْهُورًا. If you are following him, you are following someone who does sihr. Sihr is magic. Okay? So you're following somebody who's crazy, who's infatuated with magic. You're just infatuated with him. So they're telling those people, he's got no position, he's got no power, he's got no money. What's wrong with you? Can you see their objections? Okay, so these are their objections. Now, this is what Allah says, is unzur, say, كيف ضربوا لك الأمثال. See, they have not understood who you are. فَضَلُّوا فَلَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ سَبِيلًا. And they have just gone astray. They're not going to find a way out of this. So I'm going to go back. You've got your building there in your book. And literally I've put 6 things there, okay? The first thing I've put there is that he has made up these stories. So he's lied. The second thing, so to people who do not follow divine guidance will say they're ancient stories dictated to him morning and night. He's an ordinary man who eats, he goes shopping. He doesn't have any treasures, he's not accompanied by an angel, and he has psychological issues. That's basically what they said. Right? Are you good with that? Now you can read the rest of this. I'm not going to go into each ayah because it's going to be a little bit difficult, okay? So now we're going to go to the second section, which is coming up in a minute. I would have loved to do the whole surah, but I don't think we have the time to do this. So this is section 2, right? There you go. Section 2 starts at ayah 21. Now section 2 talks about the Day of Judgment. And I'd like to focus on ayah 30, okay? Normally I would do each ayah with you, but here we go. So this is the Day of Judgment. Anybody who doesn't follow divine guidance, basically, and Qur'an says this throughout the book, is someone who does not believe in resurrection and someone who does not believe that they're accountable. You'll find throughout the Qur'an, this is the theme that's there. So if you and I don't follow divine guidance, it's because we don't think we are accountable, or we don't think that divinity knows the way to success. Now this is what will happen. وَقَالَ الرَّسُولُ, on the Day of Judgment. And the Prophet we say, Ya Rabbi, O my Rabb, Inna qawmi, indeed my people, ittakhadhu, they took, hadha al-Qur'an, they took this book as mahjura. Right? I'm going to take you through that. Now, Hijr is a rock. You know that? When you go to Hajj, which many people have gone now, you also know the semicircular wall is known as Hijr Ismail. You know that, right? Now, you also know that you cannot do tawaf unless you go round it. You cannot go through it. You get that, right? So what they've done is, they've taken this Qur'an as mahjura, they scuttle around it, but they don't want to go through it. They don't want to read it. They just want to go round it. They want to avoid it. So the Prophet is going to say, this is what my people did. This is the Prophet's complaint on the day of Qiyamah, okay? So if you can just remember, Hijr, Mahjura is something that they want to scuttle around. I was reading something, and I say it very often, I quote it, I don't know who said it, but they said most Muslims see the Qur'an as a software license. They don't read everything, they just go down and say, I agree. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about me, okay? So he goes through the whole book, and I'm a Khoja, I'm very proud of being one, but when it comes to Qur'an, it's just bare and bare and bare and bare. What about it? Okay, all right, sorry, that's me. Let's go to section 3 now. So you've got section 1, you've got section 2. Are you good with that? So if you close your eyes and you think of Furqan, what do you think of? Something that tells you what's right and wrong. You think of Furqan, who you are if you follow divine guidance, and who you are if you don't follow divine guidance. Section 1 told you all the objections you have if you don't follow divine guidance, which the Makkans were. Section 2, think of the Day of Judgment and the Prophet saying that they took this book as mahjura. Now we come to section 3. Now section 3 is an example of those who did not follow the Qur'an, or who did not follow their books of guidance. And Allah always gives examples. And if you look at your building, you've got the people of Fir'aun, the people of Nuh, Ad and Thamud, and the people of Ras. I'm not going to go into a history lesson right now, but in essence, that's what section 3 is about. I suggest you read it, and I've highlighted the names of the prophets in my book. Maybe you could do that in your book as well. So for example, in this one, you know you've got Harun there, right? You've got وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا مُوسَى الْكِتَابَ. So you will highlight Musa and Harun. Then you can see how they were sent to Fir'aun. Then you can see how the people of Nuh rejected the Prophet. You've got the people of Thamud. Now the reason why you and I go to madrasa or to workshop or whatever you do is to be able to learn these historical lessons. I don't have to teach them or tell them to you. All you have to do is go to a search engine, type the name in, and the whole story will come down. On Q Fatima, we've got a whole book on Q prophets, and we've got a whole section on, if you want to hear, if you're not one of those people who reads, you can hear them, right? And Allah says, and to everyone we give examples. And if you don't take from lessons from the examples, we will destroy you, right? He's quite harsh about that. Section 4. Now, once he's given example of those who don't follow divine guidance, in the whole of section 4, which is ayah 45 to 62, and again, I'm not going to look at all of them, it's beautiful because it literally talks about when you go out, walk, look at creation. It took us about 2.5 hours to get here, but the way is beautiful because you come through all sorts of terrains. You know, you come through some greenery, you come through some towns, you come through all sorts of things. And literally, it reminds you of all these things, right? Today I was saying, very unusual for now, you've got no shade, there's no clouds. And this is England. It's beautiful. While here he says, have you seen how Allah creates shade, right? And he says, we take it away little by little, that's night, there's day, there's winds. Now again, I've put it down in your thing for you, so you can read it later on. But I'd like to go to the last section, which I'd like to spend a little bit more time on, because that's basically what we're going to look at. I'm going slowly at this, but hopefully you will underline all this in your books. So now we go to section 5. And section 5 is just phenomenal. That's the last section. So this is who you become if you follow the Qur'an. I would suggest a tick list. It's about 11 things. So basically, make a chart. I've put it down in my Quran as 11 things. I would have brought one which I give to the students, but I think you can do it yourself. Always your own words are far better than mine. Okay, so Allah says, now this is who you should be. Wa ibadur Rahman. He doesn't say ibadullah. He says ibadur Rahman. Those who are, and I know it says the servants of the Rahman. Basically it means those who are attached to the Rahman. Rahman is the only ism of Allah with which a surah starts. Every time you start something, you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. If you forget anything in life and you don't know any du'as to read, just Ya Rahman, because it's immediate mercy. It's phenomenal. Anyway, so those who are attached to the Rahman, what do? Number 1, الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. When they walk on the earth, hawnan, it's with humility. وَإِذَا خَاطَبَهُمُ الْجَاهِلُونَ. And when they, now it says meet the ignorant, no. Khitbah is a proposal for marriage. Khutbah is when you talk, as a khutbah, as a talk. So it's saying when they engage with somebody who is jahil, kalu salama, they say peace. Now I'm going to paraphrase this. Their way of life is dominated by humility. Number 1. Number 2, when insulted by ignorance, they punish it with kindness. That's what they do. I'm going to tell you a story so you don't forget this. I grew up and I was born in a town called Moshi. I was very young when my father died. I was 10. But I remember that when I was about 8 or 9, in the town that was next door to us, Arusha, some of you might recognize these names, the cemetery had been completely flooded and the graves had all sunk. And my father was one of those people who went to help to sort out the graves. And I still remember as a child when he came back, he sat down for a minute and he wouldn't speak. And my mama said, what's the matter? And he said, nothing. And what's the matter? He said, you know that man whom they used to call Alai? You know what Alai is in Gachi? Alai means somebody who's not suited, booted, who puts his shirt outside his pants, who wears chappals because he can do wudu properly. His trousers are not down, they're a bit up because they don't get najis. Have you seen those people? They're beautiful. They actually means Allahi, but we call them Alai, right? And he was the caretaker at the mosque in Arusha. And my father was doing his grave, and he had died some 10 years before. And when my father moved the earth from his grave, his body was as though it had been buried that same day. And my father said, that man, that day, who filled in water for people in their toilets, I actually filled in, and he kept your water, and people made fun of him. My father said that's what he was like. So here, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ. The first sign is الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. Their life is dominated by humility. Number 2, they will, when insulted by ignorance, they will punish it by kindness. Okay, next ayah. وَالَّذِينَ يَبِيتُونَ. Now, yabituna comes from bata. Bata means to spend the night. They spend the night لِرَبِّهِمْ سُجَّدًا وَقِيَامًا, in sajda and qiyam. When we do Surah Al-Alaq, you'll see it more. So basically, I'll paraphrase it. Their nighttime activity is talking to their Rabb. So even if they open their eyes in the middle of the night, you know they're talking to their Rabb. My grandmother used to, I cannot even remember once that if she was sitting, standing, opening her eyes, she would say, "Eh Malik Tujo Lak Shukr." Anything, she would say, "Eh Malik Tujo." And I thought that, I didn't understand then, but as a child I thought that when she said, "Eh Malik Tujo Lak Shukr," it means my knees are hurting. But it didn't. It meant, "Eh Malik Tujo Lak Shukr." Thank you, it's an amazing woman. Okay, next one. وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ. Now this is what they say. They say, "Rabbana," our Rabb, "Asrif anna adhab jahannam." Keep the fire away from us. Inna adhabaha kana garama. It's something that sticks to you. So I'm going to paraphrase this. They have a powerful vision of the akhirah. So when they're doing something wrong, they know it's like touching fire. That is why every 2 minutes they say, we don't want something that sticks to us. If you read Dua al-Hazeen after Salatul Layl, I know during Salatul Layl, maybe 1 rakat, that's fine. After that, there's a dua that Imam Zayn al-Abidin has taught, which is called Dua al-Hazeen. In the end of Dua al-Hazeen, I think it's in the third but last verse, you're asking for forgiveness from the tar, you know, like tar that's put on the roads. You're asking forgiveness for that because it sticks. So that's what that reminds you of. إِنَّهَا سَاعَةٌ مُسْتَقَرًّا وَمُقَامًا. They say it is awful, this Jahannam. Mustaqar is like an airport lounge, somewhere where you wait for a little bit. Maqama is somewhere where you live. Even if it's for a short time, we don't want to see the fire. We don't want to be near it. Incidentally, I presume you will all be doing the amal of the day of Arafat, and you will be reciting Dua al-Arafah. If you look at Dua al-Arafah, right at the end, and I'm going to turn towards it so you will remember it, this is what Imam Hussein says. He says, Ya asma as-sami'in, ya absar al-nadirin. Ears, absar al-nadirin is eyes. Ya asra al-hasibin, so numbers I remember. Ya arham al-rahimin, which is compassion. He says this right at the end. The dua says he raises his head and looked at the skies and he cried. After that long dua. So if you can remember, ears, eyes, numbers, and a hug. Can you remember that? Yeah? Good. Okay. Then he says, Salli ala Muhammadin wa ala Muhammad, Sadat al-Mayamin, send salawat on the Prophet. And he says, Was'aluka Allahumma. I'm going to ask you for one thing. So after that whole dua, he's asking for one thing. He says, if you were to give it to me, nobody can take it away from me. وَإِن مَدَعْتَنِيهَا. If you were to refuse it, nobody can give it to me. So what does he ask for? This is one thing he asked for. He says, As'aluka fakaka rakabati minan nar. I ask you that my neck be freed from the fire. That's it. Khalas. That's all he asked for. So this is what is in Surah Al-Furqan, right? Next one. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا. This is the other sign. When they spend, and spend doesn't mean just money, whatever they're doing. لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا. They don't go OTT. وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا. They're not stingy as well. وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ كَوَامًا. They are in between. So maybe I will paraphrase this. Basically, they have moderate shopping habits. They're not very stingy, and they're not completely OTT either. They don't waste either, okay? I'm looking at my husband, because every time we go to a restaurant and I leave something on my plate, he says, Asraf. And I think, oh God, 67, he must have read it. Okay, all right. وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَدْعُونَ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخِرٍ. Now, must listen to this and please write it down. First thing, they don't do shirk. Number one, what does shirk affect? The soul, right? Number two, وَلَا يَقْتُلُونَ النَّفْسَ الَّتِي حَرَّمَ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بِالْحَقِّ. They do not kill anyone. What does killing anyone refer to? The body. وَلَا يَزْنُونَ. Basically, they don't betray anyone in their relationships, which refers to the heart. So in other words, they don't kill the soul, they don't kill the body, and they don't kill the heart. وَمَن يَفْعَلْ يَلْقَى أَثَامًا. And they know that is the most awful thing you can do. So I'll paraphrase this again. They do not kill souls, they do not kill bodies, and they don't kill hearts either. Because they know يُضَاعَفْ لَهُ الْعَذَابُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. On Qiyamah, their punishment is doubled. وَيَخْلُدْ فِيهَا مُهَانًا. But this is the worst thing you can do. But then look what he says. إِلَّا مَنْ تَابَ. It is so amazing. Even the worst sins of all, we don't forgive, but God forgives. إِلَّا مَنْ تَابَ. Except those who do a U-turn. وَآمَنَ. And they believe. وَعَمِلَ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. And they start doing righteous stuff. فَأُولَٰئِكَ يُبَدِّلُ اللَّهُ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ حَسَنَاتٍ. Allah will change their evil into good. I'm not sure whether you do this, but before every salah, يَا مُحْسِنُ قَدْ أَتَاكَ الْمُسِيء. After your takbiratul ihram, it's told by Imam Zainul Abidin, or you who does ihsan, قَدْ أَتَاكَ الْمُسِيء. In front of you is the sinner. فَتَجَاوَزْ عَنْ كَبِيهِ مَا عِنْدِي بِجَمِيلِ مَا عِنْدَكَ يَا كَرِيمٌ. Change what is evil in me to what is beautiful in you. It's phenomenal. And that's basically what he's saying. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. He's Ghafoor and he is Rahim. Okay. وَمَنْ تَابَ. And he said, again he repeats, one who does a U-turn. وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا. And does good. فَإِنَّهُ يَتُوبُ إِلَى اللَّهِ مَتَابًا. He will find a turning from God. I'll give you a story so you don't forget. There's a man who came to the Prophet and he said, I can't sleep. I've got PTSD. I just can't sleep. The Prophet said, why? He said, all that goes through my head is when I buried my daughter and she said, Ya Abi, oh my father. So he relates. It's part of the custom of the Arabs at that time to bury their daughters alive, right? So they buried their daughters not because they didn't love them, but because in their community, women were used and abused, and they didn't want to see their daughters used and abused. I'd like to take you through a story so it doesn't leave your heads at all, okay? So if you imagine a mama with a little girl, imagine Baba says, sorry, gotta go bury her. And she says, no, let her grow up a little bit. So now this Baba is crawling. And he says, I'll take her now. No. Walking. No. Talking, he says, that's enough. Now we're taking her. So you imagine him holding his daughter's hand, and he's taking her to the village field, or village green as such. And he takes her to the village green, and there's a hole. And she tells her Baba, are we going to play hide and seek? And he looks at her with tears in his eyes. He puts her in the hole, and she says, where are you? And they start throwing earth on her. And she says, Ya Abi, oh my father. And that's exactly what happened. So the Prophet said, have you got a mama? He said, no. He said, have you got a father? He said, no. He said, have you got your mother's sister? And he said, yes. And the Prophet said, go serve her for the rest of your life, and that will be your tawbah for burying your daughter. So I'm just giving you small examples of what this is talking about, what tawbah means. It means dedicating yourself. Okay, there you go. وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَشْهَدُونَ الزُّورَ. Now, the English translation is quite difficult. They don't, it says, they don't bear witness to what is false. What it's basically trying to say is they don't walk away from injustice. They don't say, well, it's their problem. I'm not going to get involved. I'm walking away. It's nothing to do with me. Why should I get involved? We've seen that, haven't we? Right? So they don't do that. وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا. And when something's been done that's not right, they don't shout and scream. They just walk away with honor. So say you were sitting in a circle and there was a little bit of gossip going on. What do? You don't say, oh my goodness, you're doing ghibat. You can't do that. Get up and walk away, okay? Or change the tone of what is going on. So that's basically what they do. They don't shout and scream at anyone, okay? When we talked about ghiba in workshop, I remember very particularly this little girl, this 6-year-old, who was having dinner on the dinner table. with her parents. Now, she just learned at workshop that talking about someone was really bad, so bad that it was the difference between, this is a hadith of the Prophet. So if I talked about you, my tongue would be as long as between me and you, and the dogs of Jahannam would eat on them. So you can imagine a 6-year-old. Their teacher should not have told them that, but she did. So the next week, the mama comes in really angry. She says, we were having a discussion on the table about so-and-so, and my daughter said, that is ghiba, the dogs will eat your tongue. Now, we didn't expect her to do that. So we had to go back to the lesson, because as teachers, we get quite enthusiastic about these things. So we had to go back to the lesson and teach the children. You cannot talk to that like to your parents. You just cannot, whatever the case might be. Maybe you could have got off, and maybe you could have gone into the kitchen and say, I'm not hungry. And when mama came to look for you to say, why are you not hungry? You would say, I can't sit when somebody's been talked about, for example. Okay, so maybe as teachers of madrasa, you could take that on board. Okay. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا ذُكِّرُوا, this is beautiful, بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِمْ, when they remind themselves of the verses of the Qur'an, when they're exposed to the verses of the Qur'an, لَمْ يَخِرُّوا, they don't ignore these verses, alayha, summan wa umyana. They're not deaf or blind to them. I'll give you an example of me, not you. So I go to majlises. I'm 64, and I've been going to majlises for 65 years, because maybe in my mother's womb too, I went to everything. Every wafat, every kushali, every Eid, Thursday night. Is that what you do? Or maybe you don't. Well, I did that during COVID. Online, sat on the sofa and watched. Yes? Okay. Now, if I asked you, come up here and speak to me about the 9th Imam for 5 minutes. Mom, Dad, what his life was about, what he did. I'm not asking you to do that. But 90% of people will say, you do it, you're a better speaker. No, I'm not. But they won't come and do that. Why? Because we are يَخِرُّ عَلَيْهَا سُمًّا وَعُمْيَانًا. What is being read is just moving away from me, right? The Prophet said, he or she is not of me who doesn't go to or talk about the Ahlul Bayt without a pen and a paper. Okay, these days I would say, take your iPhone and make notes. It's okay, it doesn't matter, okay? So they don't do that. So I'll try to paraphrase this. When exposed to the ayat of their Rabb, they listen and they submit. They don't ignore. وَالَّذِينَ, and this is the most beautiful ayah of the whole thing, okay? وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ, this is what they say. رَبَّنَا حَبْلَ, you should put this in every single kunut. رَبَّنَا حَبْلَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. They are totally family orientated, totally. So they are saying, when we see our family, we want our eyes to light up. Let me explain. قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. So in the desert, imagine a rider who's going through a sandstorm. Imagine it's a really difficult sandstorm. The camel has windshield wipers. You know that? The camel blinks, he can actually take the sand out. But the rider will cover everything but his eyes. Have you seen Arab riders? They cover everything but their eyes. When the rider's eyes are stinging, imagine he's riding, eyes are stinging, they're hurting because the sand's getting into his eyes, and then he comes to an oasis. Immediately he says, هَذَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. This is the coolness of my eyes. So basically what this ayah is saying, they're so family orientated that when they come home, they think, I couldn't care if I went to a 5-star hotel. This is my home. When I see my children, when I see my family, to me it is qurrata a'yun. They're very family orientated. They bring their families together. وَجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. And they're always at the forefront. Imam is somebody in the front. They're always in the forefront of bringing their families towards being God conscious. They don't shout, they don't scream. We've been through all that before, but they do it with a lot of love. Yes? No? Okay, I don't like to embarrass my husband. He's sitting here. But I learned a lot from him. I've been married to him for 47 years? Oh my goodness, okay. Quite a long time, okay? He's married for a long time. But I learned something from him, that when we're sitting anywhere at a table or at a family dinner or whatever, He doesn't take anybody shouting. We listen to everyone. We have 5 children and 9 grandchildren, okay? So we will listen to all of them. That doesn't mean you agree with them, but you will listen to them. And if they raise their voice a little bit, he will say, I'm just here. He will take no yes and no swearing words and nothing. But you learn a lot, because that's what's lil muttaqina imama. There is a softness about the way they deal with. So you learn from examples. Ulaika yujzauna al-ghurfata. They will have apartments that are high up. What you call them? Penthouses. So their jaza, they will get penthouses. Bima sabaru. Because that sort of attitude needs so much sabr. It needs so much perseverance, so much working at. وَيُلَقَّوْنَ فِيهَا تَحِيَّةً وَسَلَامًا. And they will be at complete peace. Angels telling them peace, whatever you want to say. Right, let's see what else they do. خالدين فيها, that'll be where they'll be all the time. حسنت مستقرا ومقاما. It's the best of airport lounges and the best of homes. Mustaqarran is where you stay for a short time. That's why I call it an airport lounge, okay? So mustaqarran is somewhere. So it's somewhere, even if they're stopping there, it'll be wonderful. And even if they're staying there for a long time, it'll be wonderful. Now, last thing they do. Qul, say. Ma ya'baw. You need to know the word ya'baw. Please underline it. Do what you have to mean. Ya'baw in Arabic means no value. Something that has no value, something basically that's useless. Allah is saying, there is no value to you, lawla du'a'ukum, except if you talk to your Rabb. Now, I'm going to paraphrase this. He doesn't mean Dua Kumail without understanding. Please read Dua Kumail. Please don't forget. Even Dua Al-Arafa, pare, that's fine. Okay, but he's talking, talk to me. And I'll give you examples as well. He's saying, please talk to me. You have no value if you don't talk to me. فَقَدْ كَذَّبْتُمْ يَكُونُ لَزَامًا. And he's saying, you will have rejected the truth if you don't talk to me. Come and talk to me. Come and tell me. He tells Musa, ask me for the shoelaces in your shoes. Ask me for the salt in your dough, but talk to me. I'm going to give you an example, and I hope you won't forget this. I have a friend. She's still my friend. I haven't seen her for a while. She used to go to Damascus every month. And I used to be pretty envious of her. Can't say jealous. Yeah, okay, envious. And I was thinking, oh my God, every month she goes to Damascus. And one day she came back from Damascus and she said, oh my goodness, there was this man. If you've been to Damascus, the wall is pretty low. Have you seen it? In the Zaria Sayyidah Zainab, the men and the women, the wall is low. I don't know whether they've built it now, but at that time the wall was pretty low. You could see the other side. So she said, this man comes along. No long, there's a long ziyarah of Sayyidah Zainab. People pick up a book and go, Assalamu alaikum, this long thing. She said she didn't do that. He just came, he brought his suitcase, he said, Salams, Bibi, I've come by Aeroflot. 24 hours it's taken me to get here. My wife's left me, children have left me, no job, nothing. I spent the last of the money to come and see you. I know you had a long journey too, but I came by Aeroflot. Can you sort this out? And he walked out. And she said, I'm standing there thinking, what akhlaq have you got? You're coming into a haram, you're coming to this zari, and is this how you talk? And she said, I thought nothing of it. She said, a few months later, he comes back and she goes, oh God, now what? And she sees him walking in. And he says, Bibi, everything's sorted. I've come to say thank you. That is dua. That is literally what dua is. Look at Surah number 7, ayah 180. Surah Al-Araf, ayah 180. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ Husna. Fad'uhu biha. Talk to him with the Asma'ul Husna. Yes, read the du'as. They've been taught to us by the Ahlul Bayt so that we understand. Maybe one day, as Khojas, we will do less pare, and we'll do more understand. You're looking at me, right? Okay, great. So maybe you could do one, like, if you ask the majority of Khojas, including me, I'm looking at me myself first, and you say, what does Dua Kumail mean? They'll say, Khabane? Khali mane khabar ke 20 minute ma patawan. Take a bit longer and they'll kick you out. Okay? All right, so here he says, Kul ma ya'abau bikum rabbi. You are useless to your Rabb. The only thing that makes you useful is your du'as. In the kunut of salah, you can do your own words. Yes, thank God for that. Okay. So they're always engaged in dua. They're always talking to their Rabb. People might think they're a bit crazy, but they're always talking to him. Okay, that's your last ayah, by the way. So I'm going to go over these, just so you get the gist of it. There we go. We started ayah 63. Number 1, their way of life is dominated by humility. You got that? Okay, I'm going to just dictate it. I won't go through there. Number 2, when insulted by ignorance, they punish the ignorance with kindness. That's your ayah 63. Right, next one, ayah 64. Their nighttime activity is talking to their Rabb. Are you good with that? Next one. And they have a powerful vision of the Akhirah. Okay, so that carries through. Now, their shopping habits are moderate. They're not stingy and they're not OT. Okay, you good with that? Next one. They don't kill souls, they don't kill hearts, and they don't kill bodies. So no shirk, no murder, no, you could call it adultery, but it's actually no betrayal in the Arabic language, okay? So they don't betray anybody. All are equally offensive, okay? And this is what happens to them. But then, immediately he says that if they do a U-turn, if they ask for forgiveness, or they believe, and they do good deeds, then we will change that bad into good. That's what we're going to do. I'd like you to read Surah Al-Kahf. You know when Khizr meets Musa, or Musa meets Khizr rather. Do you know what Khizr does? I need you to read the story. He kills a young man. You know that? And Musa says, what is wrong with you? You can't just go killing people. I understand you putting holes in boats, and I understand you rebuilding a wall. But killing someone? Okay, you can go and look for why he does that. Okay. وَمَنْ تَابَ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَإِنَّهُ يَتُوبُ إِلَيْهِ مَتَابًا. So we've done that. Now, they never walk away from injustice. If something is wrong, they don't sit there and look at it and walk away. And if there is something that is not right, they walk away with nobility. They don't shout and scream. Okay? There. When they listen or when they hear anything that is divinity, they actually submit to it. Okay? They don't walk away deaf and blind. In other words, they say, Majlis majasu paranu kawani? Ibadu sarkuj pareche. Ayanune, toru pareche. Do you know how long it takes to prepare a talk? Okay, great. All right. وَالَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ, they are completely family orientated. قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ. It's amazing, it really is, okay? And they get penthouses. I'm hoping those penthouses come with lifts. Those stairs are like crazy, okay? So hopefully those angels will take you up, okay? You can have them as a permanent place or you can have them as a temporary place. And then he says they are constantly in da'ah. Constantly. They're talking to their Rabb all the time because they know he doesn't care if you don't talk to him. So anything, just keep on talking to him. And in my mind, the best way to talk to him is to use Asma'ul Husna, because in 718 he says, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا. So I'm hoping you know the 99, inshallah we'll go through that. These are just some of the selected ayat we've picked over there. Are you good? Right, so let's go over this, and then we're done, and then I can go through some of the questions you've asked me or you've told me. They're just simple stuffs, but we'll go over them. So when you think of Surah Al-Furqan, you've got your book in front of you. The first thing that comes in your head is, what does Furqan mean? So you know Furqan means something that separates right from wrong. You good with that? And it's who you become. If you follow divine guidance, who you follow if you don't follow divine guidance. 5 sections. First section talks about those who don't follow divine guidance. And we looked at the things they talked about. He's made up these stories. These are ancient stories. He's an ordinary man. He goes shopping. He eats. He doesn't have any treasures. He is not accompanied by an angel, no bodyguards. And the last thing they said was that he has psychological issues. He's mad. What the heaven is he talking about, right? So their basic thing about, the basic protest they have about prophets, or anybody else for that matter, is he doesn't have power, he doesn't have wealth, he doesn't have a known degree. So how are we going to listen to him? Yes? No? Okay, cool. Section 2 talks about the Day of Judgment. I'm going to try and go back so you've got all of this there. I don't know what I've done. Maybe I will let you deal with this. So the second section talks about the Day of Judgment. And in the Day of Judgment, I picked one thing out of there, where the Prophet would say that my people took this Qur'an as mahjura. So if you can just remember mahjura as Hijra Ismail, and you remember, I'm just going to go very slowly now, because I'm a bit scared of this. Me and technology have their issues. So mahjura is where, if you remember Hijra Ismail. So you remember Hijra Ismail, and you know when you're dealing with Hijra Ismail, I'm trying to go to the ayah, which is ayah 30, I hope. Bear with me. Sorry. Okay, there we go. If you remember Hijra Ismail, remember ayah 30, remember what the Prophet is saying, they skirted around the Quran. They put it on their shelves, they put it in a beautiful cover, they took it out in the month of Ramadan, they read it for 30 days, and they read it when people died, and they didn't even move their, I'm talking about me, they didn't even move their lips. They just, do you know how people read? I watch. And I used to read like that too, like this. And they say, and they give you the book. How did you do that? That's exactly what this is trying to say. They actually skirt around it. They work around it. This is what they do. They don't go through the Quran and try and understand it. ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Isn't that the first thing we learned? Okay. So that was second section. The third section we looked at, and I'm going to go back to my thing so I don't forget, is deniers of past prophets. So this is talking about Musa and Harun and Fir'aun and the people of Nuh, Ad, Thamud, and the people of Ras. Look it up. Then it says, now it's gone through history. Now it's telling me in the fourth section, just look around you. Take your time. Look at divinity. Look at all the things he's done and see how wonderful he is. Okay? And then we focused on the last section, which comes way after, and I've gone through this twice, which is looking at the tick box of the 11 things that you and I are supposed to look. By the way, it's not about saying you don't follow it or you don't follow it. It's about looking at myself and saying I follow it. All right? So I'd like you to close your books and not look at them, everything, and then think. Please listen to Surah Al-Furqan when you get home. So I got to ask you some questions. What does Furqan mean? Okay, how many ayat? 77. What surah is Makki or Madani? Makki, so it's talking about the why of religion. How many sections? 5. Well, before that, what's the focus? Who? That's it. As long as you say who, that's fine. 5 sections. First section? Okay. Those who didn't follow divine guidance. Second section? Day of Judgment. Third section? Past prophets. Fourth section? Reflection on creation. And fifth section? The qualities of Ibadur Rahman, or the qualities of those who follow. That's basically what this Qur'an City is about. It's taking you through each surah so you would know that. Hopefully next week we can do a couple. Now there's a couple of, I've got my phone here, but I've written them down for you. So you asked me how much the books cost. The books cost us £14 to print. However, we didn't ask you for anything, but if you want to make any donations, go straight to Q Fatima. Are we supported by an organization? No, we're not part of any organization, any Jamaat or any institution. The donations are by people who wish to be able to make sure that the Quran is read. Okay, they can be children. We don't accept more than £10 a month from anyone so that they all feel that they belong. So we have young children as little as 4, right up to adults as old as whatever. Will I ever learn the city? Yes, you will. Will we ever build it with Lego? Yes. Would you like to? Well, it just depends on your organizers, okay? Can you teach us the mnemonics? Yes, we can do that one day, just mnemonics, which means in an hour, you will know the names of the surahs from 1 to 114. Literally. It'll take an hour, and you'll be able to do that. So, inshallah, we can do that. Will we finish the Quran? I don't know. It depends whether God gives life or not. Okay. I have no idea. And the final one was, will you do Asma'ul Husna with us? Well, we'll try and do them as we go along. We're still working on it. Are you good? Okay, any questions? Are you good with Surah Al-Furqan? So next week, inshallah, or next time, if there is a next time, we will do 96, 97, 98. We can do 3 in a row. It's not that difficult. Now you've got used to it, you can do 3 or 4 together. You good? Any questions at all? Thank God for that. Right, yes. Go on. No. So, Makra is actually called a ruku. The Quran was sent to Bukhara in Russia. And when it was sent to Russia, they wanted to finish the Quran in the 27 days of Ramadan because they do Taraweeh, 20 rakats of Taraweeh, right? So they wanted to finish in Taraweeh on the 27th. So they wanted to divide the Quran in 27 times 20 sections, which is 500 and, the accountants here should know, 540. So what the ulama in Bukhara did was they divided it sort of by sections, and they called it ruku, because when you finish a section, you go into ruku. It's got nothing to do with these. When the Quran was sent to India, the Indians didn't like the Russians. So instead of 540, they did 548 sections. Okay? And the ruku has 3 numbers, one on top, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. The top is the number in the surah, or the juz, the bottom is the juz, and the middle is the number of ayat. No, these are sections we've sort of worked out through the topics concerned. And again, they are by the tafsir of the ulama, not just taken just like that. Even the suburbs in here, it's how the ulama have separated these surahs. For example, Hamidat, Musabbihat, when you do that, you'll understand what I'm saying. You can do that? Yeah. Can we end with the Surah Al-Fatiha, please? Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'een. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Sadaqallahu al-azim.